You're saying that cheating poisoned father? I am not certain. It's just a suspicion. In a corridor outside the western wing, Yu Fu and Gu Shubai were returning from the main hall. While walking, they discussed Gu Huaijiang's poisoning. Gu Jiuge was responsible for questioning the manor's servants and investigating the things that Gu Huaijiang used in his daily life. But he never found anything. This left everyone feeling very dispirited. Yu Fu said, "If we can't find the slightest bit of evidence, I don't want to suspect anyone lightly. Eldest brother, do you remember when Cheating returned after the New Year? Even though she had spent over half a year in the countryside, her clothes had completely changed." Gu Shubai said, "What was different?" She thought back to Cheating's situation on that day. She wore normal cloth clothes that a countryside girl would wear and wore a simple hairpin. She was also wearing a pair of very small silver earrings. There did not seem to be anything improper, but that pair of earrings was not made by a normal shop. It was a style made by the best jewelry shop in the capital. Gu Shubai carefully thought back. You mean to say that she deliberately deceiving others to try and have people believe that she has been earnestly spending her days in the countryside on her own? But a maidservant who has been sent to the countryside, when would she have the chance to buy trendy accessories in the capital? Naturally, the granny responsible for her in the countryside would not allow her to go. Although Qian and Qizhou were her relatives, they would not buy her any accessories. The only possibility was that Qi Ting had returned to the capital before she had been brought back to the manor. She definitely had some sort of secret. Yu Fu said, "This is just my suspicion. It's possible that she only returned to the capital to play around and was not bribed. That's why I told Yao Lan to keep an eye on her. I will let you guys know once I know anything definitive. Right now, Head General's poison cannot be treated, nor can we find any clues. The only one I can suspect now is her." Gu Shubai patted her head and consoled her. "I know that you don't want to falsely accuse anyone. It's exactly as Steward Qi said. All of the servants in the manor have served here for many years, and they have no reason to harm father. Only Qi Ting has been away from the manor for an extended period of time. She is most likely to have done it." Yu Fu said with dismay, "I have asked Yao Lan, and they all said that Qi Ting has not done anything strange in the past few days. At most, she would curse me out behind my back. Eldest brother, do you think that she's really the one who did it? You suspect Kuan Wushang, and you suspect Qi Ting. There's only one possibility, and that's that she has been bribed by Kuan Wushang. This is easy to handle. Leave this to me. You just need to think of how to treat father." Yu Fu vigorously nodded her head. "I have spent all day looking through the medical books that Master gave me in hopes of finding something. If all else fails, we will have to invite him to personally come and visit." Gu Shubai understood that if even Yu Fu could not treat it, it definitely was not ordinary. He could not delay in the slightest. At night, the candle in the western wing's main room was still lit. Yu Fu sat under the candlelight. Her expression had never been so solemn before. Auntie Li had sent all of the maidservants out, leaving only Yao Lan at her side. Even if Lian Zhu and the others were worried, it was pointless. All they could do was go to sleep. The western wing was tranquil. In the backyard, Qi Ting carried a bucket of water from the footbath outside and poured it out. Suddenly, she pulled her neck in. The western wing was too quiet tonight, which made her actions seem too loud. It was fortunate that Granny Lu did not come out to scold her. She tiptoed and planned to return to her room when she suddenly heard a roof tile move. Following this, a dark figure swung down, startling her and making her want to scream. "Don't scream. It was Master who told me to come and ask you how are things progressing?" The person in black covered her mouth and looked over at the bamboo forest near the western wing. "It's inconvenient to speak here. I will wait for you in the bamboo forest." After saying this, the figure in black disappeared from the top of the roof. Qi Ting was quite badly shaken. Thinking of how he had mentioned his master, could it be that he had been sent by Yin Shua? When he had told her to return to Marquis Gu's manor, he only told her that he would find a chance to send someone to communicate with her. He told her to first gain the trust of everyone in Marquis Gu's manor. Yes, it had to be someone sent by Yin Shua. Qi Ting rejoiced. Taking the chance when nobody was around, she quietly walked out of the western wing's rear entrance. Not far in the distance, a candle burned bright, as Yu Fu saw everything through a partially opened window. Sure enough, there was a problem with her. Qi Ting walked into the bamboo forest. It was dark all around, and she was a little bit frightened. After taking a few steps further, she still could not find the person in black and could only begin looking around. Suddenly, she heard some movement from above. Frightened, she let out a soft cry and fell to the ground. It was only then that she realized that the person in black and descended from above. Qi Ting patted her chest. Was it eldest young sir who sent you? The person in black furrowed his brow. Fortunately, his face was obscured by cloth, and Qi Ting could not see his facial features. She continued on her own. Things have not been progressing smoothly. That girl, Yu Fu, actually demoted me to handle physical labor, so I spend my days doing dirty and tiring work. I can't even leave the Western Wing, so how could I possibly keep an eye on Lord Marquis and the heir? I think that she is suspicious of me, so it's pointless for me to stay in Marquis Gu's manor. Quickly have the eldest young sir take me away. The person in black looked at her strangely. What eldest young sir? Keep an eye on what? Could it be that she had not been sent by Kuan Wushang to poison Gu Huaijiang? After just a moment of hesitation, the person in black had already decided on what to say. He quietly said, even if you don't leave the Western Wing, you should have heard a bit about what is happening in the manor. Tell me about them. As for whether or not to take you away, I will let the eldest young sir know. Qi Ting heard this and happily said, then I will trouble you with it. In recent days, there hasn't been anything. Oh, there was something. I seem to hear that Lord Marquis was poisoned, and not even Imperial Physician's son could figure out what poison it was, but who knows if it's true or not. Gu Huaijiang was poisoned? Do you know anything about it? I have been handling manual labor in the Western Wing. When would I get a chance to find anything out? I can't even get close to Yu Fu. Speaking about it like this, she was not the one who poisoned Gu Huaijiang. The eldest young sir that she mentioned also could not be Kuan Wushang. Yu Fu was right to suspect her. She was indeed hiding something, but it was completely unrelated to Gu Huaijiang's poisoning. He had gone searching for spices and found gold instead. He had ended up finding an agent that someone else had planted in Marquis Gu's manor. The person in black sneered and pressed his sword against Qi Ting's neck. Tell me, who is this eldest young sir you spoke of? Suddenly, torches illuminated the bamboo forest, and the situation changed. Qi Ting's eyes grew large with fear. You weren't sent by the eldest young sir? The person in black removed his mask and revealed an expressionless face. It was as if it had been covered in a layer of frost. It was none other than Gu Hanemo. The people carrying torches approached from all sides, and Gu Shubai patted Gu Hanmo's shoulder. I've troubled you with this, third brother. You rarely come to the Western Wing, so Qi Ting recognizes you the least. I could only have you come and play this role. Qi Ting watched all of this play out before her. She had been caught, and this was Gu Shubai's trap. Gu Hanemo coldly put his sword away. This sort of disloyal servant, eldest brother, you must not let her off lightly. Even if she did not poison father, she is definitely working for one of Marquis Gu's manor's enemies. Qi Ting's legs became weak as she grabbed Gu Shubai's arm. Eldest young sir, I haven't. How could I dare to poison Lord Marquis? I also haven't done anything that would be detrimental to Marquis Gu's manor. I haven't had a chance to. Smack dash, Qian put all of his strength into a slap, delivering a strike straight to Qi Ting's face. She was caught off guard and was knocked to the ground. Qi Zhou grabbed Qian. The latter was already getting old and was gasping for air. You scoundrel! Why haven't you confessed yet? Who told you to poison Lord Marquis? Grandfather, I really didn't poison Lord Marquis. Eldest young Serene only told me to return to the manor and to think of a way to keep an eye on Lord Marquis and the eldest young sir, but I really could not. Eldest young Serene, Gu Shubai and Gu Hanemo exchanged a look. Both of them reached an understanding. Qi Ting was an agent inserted into Marquis Gu's manor by Yin Shuo, but she had no knowledge of the poison. It seemed that Yu Fu's speculation was correct. The most likely person that remained was Kuan Wushang. The poison is getting worse. In the main hall, Yu Fu pulled her silver needles out of Gu Huaijiang's neck. The area that produced black needles had spread a great deal. She would perform acupuncture for him every day. The toxicity of the poison was clearly under control, but the poison continued to spread. There was only one possibility that remained. The poison was still at play. Qizhou walked forward and said, "Young Miss Yu Fu, that's not possible. Qi Ting has already been locked up. It's impossible for her to be the one who poisoned Lord Marquis. This servant tests Lord Marquis food every day before it is served. If there was any poison, this servant would also be poisoned." Yu Fu said, "Steward Qi Ting is not the one who carried out the poisoning. I trust your loyalty, but have you ever inspected the things in this main hall?" Gu Shubai and Gu Jiugu were waiting to the side, and Gu Jiugu said, "Steward Qi and I inspected everything here. There definitely aren't any problems. Since there's nothing wrong with his food or with the things that he uses on a daily basis, how exactly did the perpetrator have father come into contact with the poison?" Gu Huaijiang got up from the bed and put his clothes on. "These past few days, I have stayed in the manor. Aside from the main hall, I have been in the outer study. Yu Fu, do you think the perpetrator might have done something inside the outer study?" "Outer study? Right, it must be the outer study." Yu Fu had a sudden realization. The outer study is a place that the servants cannot enter. That's why we never thought of investigating it. But Kuan Wushang did indeed go in, right? Saying this, she ran out of the main hall and rushed straight for the outer study. Gu Huaijiang waved his hand. "You guys go too." When everyone reached the outer study, Yu Fu only allowed them to stand there and look. They were not allowed to touch anything. It's very likely that this is where Kuan Wushang used the poison. "Have you guys come to the outer study recently?" While she searched through the bookshelves, she questioned Gu Shubai and the others without looking at them. Gu Shubai said, "We did indeed come, but we never looked through any of the books, nor have we sorted through any of the reports. Second brother and I have not been poisoned. If the poison is in the outer study, father must have touched something that we have not. In the past few days, what had Gu Huaijiang touched that the two of them had not?" Yu Fu looked through the various bookshelves, then turned to Gu Huaijiang's desk. There were many reports that had not yet been handled and some that had been taken care of. These past few days, he had not attended court, but he was unwilling to stop working. From time to time, he would come to the outer study to take care of some work. She slowly approached the desk, and a strange odor entered her nose. "Come and have a smell. What is this smell?" Everyone went over, and Qizhou copied Yu Fu, leaning over the desk and carefully sniffing. He tightly furrowed his brow. "It smells a little like wood shavings. The desk in Lord Marquis' outer study is made of rosewood. It should not crack or be damaged by bugs. Where is this smell coming from?" Gu Shubai and the others also went to smell it. They were only able to smell something was off after this reminder from Qizhou. "It seems to be the smell of wood shavings, but I can't be certain. If not for your reminder, I fear that father and I would not have noticed anything off." Yu Fu looked at Gu Shubai. "Steward Qi has always taken great care in taking care of the manor. It's natural that he would be a little more familiar with the smells than you guys. If I had not studied poisons from a young age, I fear that I would not have noticed it either. This isn't the smell of wood shavings at all. Instead, it's the smell of a crushed poisonous bug that eats wood. Its name is tree crawler." Gu Jiugu said, "Poisonous bug?" Saying it like that, father was poisoned by a big? Yu Fu used a handkerchief to wipe the top of the desk, then extended her hand and blocked everyone off. "Let's go out first to speak. Don't send the official work to the outer study during the coming days. If any important matters come in, send them straight to the main hall. Steward Qi, have the outer study put under observation. Don't let anyone accidentally go in and get poisoned." Qizhou hastily complied. "Yes, young miss." Everyone exited the outer study before Yu Fu said, "Head General was not poisoned by a bug. The tree crawler is a type of poisonous bug that eats wood and has a gentle disposition. Like the poisonous butterfly, it's usually used to find poison. If it was used as a poison and Head General was poisoned by that, there's nothing to worry about. What is worrying is if it's crushed then spread on a desk. A gentle bug naturally has a way of protecting itself. The tree crawler's preservation technique is to release a slow-acting and toxic poison upon being crushed. Gu Shubai said, regardless, at the very least, we know what poison is afflicting father. Yu Fu, do you have a way of treating the tree crawler's poison? Yu Fu let out a long sigh as her entire face bunched up from a frown. I can treat the tree crawler's poison, but the desk didn't just have the tree crawler's poison. There were also other poisons. I need to take this back and carefully research them for a few days to figure out what medicines are needed to treat Head General. As she said this, she pulled out the handkerchief that had been balled up. Unfortunately, not much of the poison can be found after the desk had been wiped down every day. I can only try and differentiate it based on the smell. Unfortunately, the smell of the tree crawler poison is too strong, basically masking the smell of the other poisons. Even if she was an immortal practitioner of poison, doing something like this was quite difficult. They all felt uneasy, but they had to keep up their smiles in front of Yu Fu to comfort her and let her know that there was no need to worry. Whether or not Gu Huaijiang could be treated rested with Yu Fu. At the moment, they could not allow her to get flustered. After watching her leave, Gu Shubai and Gu Jiugu exchanged a look. Their forced smiles slowly disappeared. Eldest brother, that night, you said that a storm was on the horizon. Who knew that it really came true? On the night of the birthday banquet, Kuan Wushang was drawn to the outer study, but who knew that he would actually leave something like this behind? We underestimated him too greatly. Gu Shubai said, he is a prince of Western Kuan. Western Kuan dreads the Gu family's army the most. Once his poisoning was successful, he would be someone who made great contributions to Western Kuan. Even if it's not enough to claim the position of crown prince, it should provide him with the ability to compete for more power. Gu Jiugu sneered. The people of Western Kuan have always been ambitious. I fear that news of father's poisoning has already spread, leading to a large battle breaking out on the border. At that time, who would Eastern Ling dispatch to fight that battle? In Shua's assassination attempt failed, and he actually bribed Qi Ting to keep an eye on the manor. Eldest brother, look at how father wholeheartedly served the country, yet the court repay him like this. Shu. Gu Shubai said, In Shua is In Shua, and the court is the court. He has a personal grudge against Marquis Gu's manor, while His Majesty and the members of court will understand Marquis Gu's manor's loyalty. Right now, treating father is what's most important. I hope that Yu Fu can quickly figure out what medicine is needed to treat him. Gu Jiugu's expression remained dejected. I fear that it will be difficult. Eldest brother, did you notice Yu Fu's expression earlier? Has she ever not been full of confidence when treating a poison, having everything under her control? This time, she had her brow tightly furrowed and looked as worried as we are. Gu Shubai thought back to his time in the cave in Changzhou. At that time, Yu Fu was full of confidence and almost braggingly said, To poison the people at my side, I will have them see who is more poisonous. That was how Yu Fu treated these sorts of problems. This time, her attitude was indeed filled with uncertainty. Gu Shubai let out a sigh and calmed himself. Gu Huaijiang had been poisoned, and the people of Marquis Gu's manor were feeling uneasy. His siblings and the servants of the manor were looking to him, the eldest son. He absolutely must not panic. He patted Gu Jiugu's shoulder. Yu Fu is right. If she can't treat father's poison, she will invite the deity of medicine to personally come and treat him. Father will definitely be fine. Don't worry. Gu Jiugu, however, said, I know that Yu Fu is the deity of medicine's beloved disciple, but would she really be able to convince the deity of medicine to come? I have heard that the deity of medicine almost never leaves Immortal's Valley. Before the late Empress died of illness, His Majesty sent someone to Immortal's Valley to bring him over, but he never came. It was only the previous Empress Dowager who received treatment from the deity of medicine, and she lived until she was 80 before passing away. Since that time, has eldest brother heard any word of the deity of medicine leaving the valley? Gu Shubai nodded with a smile. Indeed, I have not. But if Yu Fu said it, she can definitely do it. Our communications with Immortal's Valley have always been very secure. The valley will surely send a reply very soon. As long as Kuan Wushang returned to Immortal's Valley, The deity of medicine will surely punish him very severely for young miss. Yu Fu ferociously said, "That bastard." Achoo. Western Kuan's 7th Prince's Manor. Kuan Wushang was drying herbs in the courtyard and suddenly sneezed. A servant eagerly stepped forward. "Your Highness, what's wrong? How about leaving something as menial as drying herbs to this servant? Your Highness has a noble status and are not suited to doing such things." Because he had contributed by getting the Prime Minister of Eastern Ling removed, he was rewarded by Western Kuan. He had also been assigned more power, taking control of matters related to the Board of Revenue. Of course, Emperor Kuan only knew that Yin Yin was capable, but did not know that the newly appointed Yin Shua was even more capable. The Board of Revenue was responsible for the census and finances. It was the same as having a grasp on Western Kuan's lifeline. The people who previously looked down on Kuan Wushang naturally changed their tunes. Even the servants in the manor became much more attentive. He spent long periods of time at Immortals Valley and very rarely returned to Western Kuan. The 7th Prince's manor was usually quite desolate. When he occasionally returned, the servants would only put in a minimal amount of effort, and they would not serve him very attentively. What was the point of attentively serving a prince of lowly birth with no real power, who only returned to Western Kuan for a few days before leaving once more? Now, things were different. There were some officials who began commenting that since Emperor Kuan had given control of the Board of Revenue to Kuan Wushang, he was guarding himself against the Crown Prince. Although Emperor Kuan was not young, he was still full of vigor. It seemed that he still had another 10 to 20 birthdays. Although he had already announced a Crown Prince, he was reluctant to relinquish his power and allow the Crown Prince to take over. Kuan Wushang's contributions allowed Emperor Kuan an excuse to divert some of the Crown Prince's power. Thus he gave away the Board of Revenue, which was the most important department. He waved his hand and said with indifference, "There's no need. I often handle these things on my own in Immortals Valley and have become accustomed to it." The servant wanted to curry favor with him, but was coldly refused. He could only retreat. "But this prince sees that you are thorough in the way that you handle things. In the future, you will be in charge of the guards in the front yard. How about it?" The servant, who believed that he had failed to curry favor with him, suddenly heard Kuan Wushang bring this up. He happily turned toward him. Regardless of what he was in charge of, as long as he was in charge of something in the 7th Prince's manor, that would mean being promoted to steward. From that moment on, he would be a figure of importance in the manor. The servant was extremely thankful. "Many thanks, Your Highness." After that servant left, Kuan Wushang's personal guard came forward and was very dissatisfied. "Your Highness, the people in this manor have always obeyed the powerful and trampled on those below them. They're only currying favor now that Your Highness has gained influence. Why bother giving them any benefits? The benefits must be handed out. If they aren't, how could anyone want to work hard for me?" Kuan Wushang flipped the herbs while saying, "My guards in the inner courtyard will still be under your command. As for the other parts of the manor, they aren't important. I fear that this stay in the country will last for quite some time. You will need to put some effort into managing the manor's guards." The guard said in shock, "Your Highness won't be returning to Immortals Valley?" Kuan Wushang self-mockingly laughed. "If I go back now, I'm afraid that Master will beat me to death. I'm not going to try to die." Ever since figuring out the source of the poison, Gu Huijiang's condition improved significantly. Yu Fu did not allow him to enter the outer study, thus he often spent time looking through reports in the main hall. He suddenly saw Qian enter to make a report. "Lord Marquis, news has come from the palace. His Majesty's illness has gotten worse." Even though Gu Huijiang was not going into the palace, he was still very worried about Emperor Ning's condition. Hearing that Emperor Ning was getting worse, he hastily put down his book. His Majesty only caught a cold. How could it get worse? Qian said. The imperial physician said that it did indeed just start as a cold. However, His Majesty is older and was constantly feeling anxious, thus the cold got worse. Today, His Majesty became dizzy before court, and today's morning court session had to be cancelled. Gu Huijiang did not understand medicine. Why would His Majesty constantly feel anxious? Even when it came to appointing a new prime minister or selecting a crown prince, he had never been anxious before. Now that the situation in court is improving with each day, what could cause any anxiety? The imperial physician's explanation was a little too suspicious. Gu Huaijiang thought for a moment and remembered his own case. When I was poisoned, didn't imperial physician's son also say that my cough was caused by a pathogen entering my body? Qian was stunned. Lord Marquis means to say, His Majesty might not simply have a cold? Gu Huaijiang said, Go and bring the eldest young sir in. I have some instructions to give. Not long later, the sound of Gu Shubai's hurried footsteps came from the courtyard. Father, are you feeling unwell? Gu Huaijiang shook his head and waved to have him approach. I am very well. Father has a task for you to take care of. Right, bring Yu Fu with you. In the large imperial palace, Yu Fu stuck close to Gu Shubai's side and headed toward Emperor Ning's bedchamber. It was the beginning of spring, and it was starting to get warmer. Gu Shubai was already wearing thin spring clothing. It was a simple but elegant pale blue robe. When the occasional gust of wind blew past, his collar would quiver and reveal his collarbone. The palace maids that saw him would blush then lower their heads. When he passed by them, they would secretly sneak another look. Yu Fu stayed at his side and saw that he had a completely indifferent expression and did not seem to know that the palace maids were looking at him. How could he not know? He was even able to notice when she took a deep breath. To say that his martial ability is exceptional would not be an exaggeration. It was likely because he had grown accustomed to it, right? Yu Fu suddenly grabbed a hold of his hand, making Gu Shubai look down at her. What is it? It was that very gentle voice that caused a hushed cry to come from the palace maids nearby, who knew just how many young girls' hearts trembled from hearing it. Marquis Gu's air really is gentle, treating his little sister so well. If I had such a gentle older brother, how nice would that be? If you were as beautiful as young Miss Yu Fu, there would be no shortage of young men who would want to treat you this gently. The gentleness that the air shows is not the kind that one shows a younger sister. Have you not heard? Lord Marquis Gu wants to engage young Miss Yu Fu to the air. Some girls were heartbroken and grieved as if they were victims of a disaster. Yu Fu smiled and lifted her head. It's nothing. The palace is too large, and I was worried about getting lost. Gu Shubai held her hand a little tighter, completely ignoring everyone else's eyes. Come with me. Passing through the long and winding corridor, Emperor Ning's palace came into view. Arriving outside the hall, Eunuch Gao personally came forward. Eldest young sir, young Miss Yu Fu, His Majesty is feeling a bit better today. Please quickly come in. I fear that His Majesty might pass out soon. Gu Shubai said. Has His Majesty been passing out often in recent days? Eunuch Gao sighed. Just thinking about Emperor Ning's illness gave him a headache. That's right. Who knows what's wrong? A number of imperial physicians have examined him, but they could not see what problems there were with the cold. As he said this, they suddenly saw In Shua walk up from the back. Eunuch Gao stepped forward and saluted him. Prime Minister In. Gu Shubai also stepped forward to greet him. In Shua was already the prime minister. This position was higher than his as an heir. In Shua modestly returned the greeting. I just came over from court and wanted to visit His Majesty. It's truly a coincidence to see eldest young sir here. Even young Miss Yu Fu is here. Yu Fu bowed. Greetings, Prime Minister. She had a respectful and distant attitude. After an eventful winter, her tender face had lost some of its childishness and become a great deal more beautiful. In Shua had not seen her for a long time and suddenly remembered the night that he had seen them at Westlake, and Yu Fu had said that she remembered him. At that time, the smile on her face was childish and warm. She did not put up any barriers to protect herself from others. Thinking about it, she had been in Easternling for nearly a year. For such a smart girl, 1 year was more than enough time to learn that people were not so easy to understand. He felt a little disappointed. Who knew if this intelligence was a good thing or a bad thing? It was only after a bit of time that he found his voice. Congratulations, young Miss Yu Fu. You've grown taller and become more beautiful. Yu Fu felt at a loss. Why was it that everyone spoke to her like an older brother? The eldest prince and the second prince were like this, and In Shua was also like this. They were all a bit older than her, and they were all trying to curry favor with Marquis Gu's manor, which left her with no excuse to refuse them. Many thanks, Prime Minister Ian, for the compliment. I also wish to congratulate Prime Minister on the promotion. The three exchanged pleasantries outside the hall before Eunuch Gao led them inside. In Shuo walked at the front, while Gu Shubai and Yufu walked at the back. The two happened to be able to see In Shua's back. He was young, but he was wearing the red official robes that only a first-rank official could wear. Adding in the official's hat, there was nothing that did not show off his nobility. This person in red robes wanted to kill eldest brother. Yufu thought about this. Thinking about Gu Huijiang's warning, she internally distanced herself from In Shuo. Author's note: I've suddenly thought of a problem. What does everyone think is different about the gentle kindness shown by the eldest brother and the fourth brother? You guys came? Emperor Ning lay in bed under a thick blanket. His face was pale, and he looked as if he had aged 10 years. Gu Shubai glanced at Eunuch Gao. If this was considered being better, Emperor Ning's illness was quite severe. It was no wonder Gu Huijiang specially told him to bring Yu Fu into the palace to visit. Everyone saluted him, and Emperor Ning covered his mouth and coughed, "Humph, humph, please be seated. There's no need to stand on ceremony." Yu Fu rarely entered the palace, and Emperor Ning squinted his eyes to look at her. He felt that she had matured a great deal from before. Like a flower, she was blooming beautifully. He nodded his head with gratification. Yu Fu, we see that you've grown a great deal taller and are becoming more and more beautiful. Yu Fu. Thank you, Your Majesty, for the compliment. Ever since Emperor Ning found out that she wanted to marry Gu Shubai, who knew if he felt that she was no longer a threat to Eastern Ling, or if he knew that her claim of having studied in Immortal's Valley was not false, but his attitude toward her had improved significantly. Emperor Ning then turned to Gu Shubai. The children are all grown up. We and your father have also gotten old. I heard that your father has also been bedridden with illness. We had Imperial Physician's son visit to take care of him. How has he been doing recently? Gu Shubai quickly glanced at Yu Fu, and the latter kept her head down while sitting to the side. If Emperor Ning did not ask about him, she would never speak up. His expression remained unmoved, and he looked like he did not know about the situation. Many thanks, Your Majesty, for the concern. Father caught a cold that gave him coughing fits. There aren't any major problems, but the illness keeps coming back, so the imperial physician advised that he stay home for a few more days. Father wanted to come into the palace to see Your Majesty, but he was also worried that he might pass his illness on to Your Majesty, thus he could only have this subject come and visit with Yu Fu. Emperor Ning heard this and smiled, saying, It's fine, it's fine. The two of us are one and the same. We are also worried about passing our illness on to him. Look at Imperial Consort Xian. Who knows if she has exhausted herself from taking care of us, or if she caught our illness. She could no longer support herself and returned to her palace to be taken care of by an imperial physician. It's nice to be young, as you're all sturdier than old bones like us. He smiled and looked at the three, just like a normal elder would look at those of the younger generation. It was only now that In Shua cupped his hands and said, Your Majesty has been emperor for a long time. It's just a small illness, and you will quickly recover. Emperor Ning said, We are not worried. Court has the two of you present, so even if Marquis Gu and I are sick for a few days, nothing will be neglected. The two that he mentioned were Gu Shubai and In Shuo, one civil official and one military official, one general and one prime minister. Both were Eastern Ling's outstanding talents from the younger generation. All that was missing was a crown prince. Once the crown prince was appointed, the next generation of Eastern Ling would officially begin. Gu Shubai and In Shuo politely smiled but did not look at each other. Yu Fu suddenly stood up from her seat. Your Majesty, I heard that the Linin Temple near Westlake is very effective, so I went and prayed for blessings and protection for Your Majesty and Head General. This is a talisman that the Master Abbot. I hope that Your Majesty will not mind. She was quite filial. Emperor Ning looked at her with approval, and Eunuch Gao received the talisman from her. After determining that there was nothing wrong with it, he was about to put it away. Yu Fu said, Master Abbot said that it only works if one sincerely believes it. The one who made the prayer will personally place it beneath your Majesty's pillow. It will be good for your Majesty's illness. I personally placed one below Head General's pillow yesterday. Today, he said that he slept until the sun came up and is feeling much better. Is it that effective? Emperor Ning already had a bit of faith in religion. Hearing Yu Fu say this, he gave Eunuch Gao a look. Eunuch Gao handed the talisman back to Yu Fu. Then I will trouble young Miss Yu Fu. Yu Fu carefully folded the talisman and walked toward Emperor Ning's bed. In Shua's gaze focused on Yu Fu. From his angle, he could clearly see Yu Fu's actions. He saw her lift Emperor Ning's wrist from next to the pillow and gently move it to the side before lifting a corner of the pillow and placing the folded talisman beneath it. After that, she returned Emperor Ning's hand to where it was before. A look of approval appeared in Eunuch Gao's eyes. Although she was young, she was very thorough and considerate. It was no wonder everyone in Marquis Gu's manor doted on her so much. Who knew if it was a psychological effect or something else? But after Yu Fu placed the talisman under his pillow, Emperor Ning's complexion immediately improved a great deal. He shifted his head around a bit, looking for a comfortable position. Yu Fu, you really are considerate. In the past, Marquis Gu doted on you so much, yet we felt that he was obsessed. After hearing that he engaged you to Shubai, we finally found out what he was planning. But he's the one who got lucky. A marriage to a mortal's valley, it's not something that the average person can hope for. In Shua's expression momentarily became stiff. Thinking about how Yu Fu walked alongside Gu Shubai in the palace and how the two intimately spent their days together in Marquis Gu's manor, he felt a discomfort in his heart. Yu Fu quietly walked back with a hint of embarrassment in her smile. Yu Fu does not have any other abilities and can only do my best to learn to ensure that the people in the manor are not harmed by any poisons. You are too modest. We still remember the day that you played the zither. It was immediately clear just how much effort the deity of medicine put into raising you. After chatting for a while, Emperor Ning needed to rest, and everyone retreated from the bedchamber. In Shua cupped his hands to the other two. There are still some matters to attend to in court, so I won't be keeping you two company. Farewell. Right as he left, his gaze briefly lingered on Yu Fu. Unfortunately, Yu Fu did not notice. However, Gu Shubai noticed him acting strangely. Yu Fu, is there a problem? He looked around and lowered his voice to ask Yu Fu. When she had given the talisman, she had checked Emperor Ning's pulse. It was only for a brief moment, so it was unclear if she found anything. Yu Fu's voice was even lower than his. His Majesty was poisoned. Yu Fu's familiarity with poison was such that she could immediately determine its presence just by briefly checking someone's pulse. Moreover, she had checked Emperor Ning's pulse twice to make sure. There was absolutely no chance that she was wrong. But there were too many people at Emperor Ning's side. In Shua was also present. At the time, she had no choice but to pretend that nothing was wrong, but she already felt that this was a perilous situation. It was only after returning to Marquis Gu's manor that she let out a sigh of relief. Were you able to determine what poison was used on His Majesty? Gu Huijiang was not surprised by Yu Fu's conclusion. Emperor Ning's illness was too similar to his own. Both looked exceptionally common, yet they never fully recovered. Having experienced it himself, he immediately recognized Emperor Ning's problem. Yu Fu said, I was able to. It's different from the poison that was used on Head General. This sort of poison might be seen as rare to the rest of the world, but it's very common in Immortal's Valley. But this poison is a bit slow when it comes to killing its target. It's such that His Majesty is getting weaker and weaker, but the imperial physicians can't find anything wrong. She could treat this poison. It would only take a bit of effort. But whether or not it would fall to her to treat, and whether or not Marquis Gu's manor would make Emperor Ning's poisoning known, these were all touchy subjects. To be able to do this to Emperor Ning, the person behind it definitely did not have a simple background. To avoid being discovered, the poisoning would definitely need to be done slowly and quietly. This was for Gu Huijiang, and it had to be this way for Emperor Ning. Kuan Wushang was very smart. He knew that Yu Fu would never go to Gu Huijiang's outer study, thus he chose to put the poison there. Under normal circumstances, Yu Fu would never notice. Then who poisoned Emperor Ning? Could this also have been done by Kuan Wushang? Everyone's eyes turned to Yu Fu, and the latter shook her head. It can't be. If it was him, he would definitely use a poison that I can't treat and not something this simple. Moreover, he is a prince from Western Kuan. He has never had a chance to get close to His Majesty. That's why it can't be him. If it was not Kuan Wu Shang, it was someone from Eastern Ling's court. Gu Shubai's gaze turned cold as he suddenly thought of something. Today, Emperor Ning had said that Imperial Consort Xian had been taking care of him this entire time. If Emperor Ning really was poisoned, appointing the second prince as crown prince would have just been empty talk. The one to benefit the most would be Imperial Consort Xian's son, the eldest prince. Princess Danyang had hastily visited Marquis Gu's manor to tell him this, and that was definitely something that the second prince had told Princess Danyang. The information had gone through a few people. If there was even the slightest leak in information, that news would surely reach the eldest prince and Imperial Consort Xian. Regicide, usurping the throne, forcefully seizing the title. A number of shocking ideas rushed through his mind. Gu Huaijiang looked at him and seemed to understand what he was thinking. He furrowed his brow and thought for a moment. His Majesty has many people at his side, but there are not many who could poison him without anyone noticing. If we are not sure who did it, rashly publicizing the fact that His Majesty was poisoned might cause trouble for Marquis Gu's manor. Yu Fu nodded. She knew that there were powerful forces at play here, thus she did not dare say anything while in the palace. I did a few things to the talisman that I gave His Majesty. It can stave off evil and poison, but it won't be too effective. How they would proceed from here would all depend on Gu Huaijiang's intentions. But based on Yu Fu's understanding of him, he definitely would not just sit idly by now that Emperor Ning had been poisoned. Being able to uncover who did it was naturally best, but if they could not, even if Marquis Gu's manor was suppressed, they needed to make this matter known. Yu Fu said, "When I was flipping through some medical books a couple of nights ago, I found some poisons that the older generations used with tree crawler poison and suddenly had some inspiration. After this, as long as I can experiment with a few types of medicines, I might be able to find a way to fully treat the poison-troubling head general." Experiment? Gu Shubai said. How would you experiment? When we were testing medicines in Immortals Valley, we would use wild mice and wild rabbits for experiments. But before actually using them, they needed to be tested on humans first to feel at ease. We always used criminals that were sentenced to die by the various countries. Naturally, they needed to be extremely careful with any medicine used on Gu Huaijiang, and Gu Shubai said, "Then I will have someone go and fetch you some rabbits. You can test it as you like. There's no need to worry about His Majesty's situation for now." "All right, when you have decided on how to save His Majesty, just let me know. But it can't be delayed for too long. It can wait for half a month at most. If we delay any longer, His Majesty's life would be at risk." Yu Fu provided a deadline, then turned around and returned to the Western Wing to continue with studying medicine. Gu Huaijiang could not stop himself from letting out a sigh. When it rains, it pours. With all of these things happening at the same time, we've troubled Yu Fu. Though she was proficient with poison, she was still young. Moreover, the poison afflicting Gu Huaijiang was so troublesome. Just looking at her over the past few days, her chin had become sharper. When Gu Huaijiang saw this, he felt extremely heartbroken. Gu Shubai stepped forward to help tuck in the corners of his blanket. "Father, don't worry. Yu Fu has the ability. Watching you get poisoned, but being unable to do anything about it, is what truly made her feel miserable. Have you not noticed that she has been more spirited since finding the clues?" He was right. A few days earlier, before Yu Fu had found the clues, she would flip through her medicine books all day and all night, refusing to sleep. It was only in these past few days that they heard Aunt Li say that she was willing to sleep for a few hours each night. Gu Huaijiang found this to be reasonable and felt much more at ease. He then changed the topic, the matter of His Majesty's poisoning. "You already have an idea in mind, don't you?" Gu Shubai smiled and said, "Doesn't Father also have an idea in mind?" In Qinghua Palace, Imperial Consort Xian had already used sickness to avoid going out for 2 days. On the second day, the eldest prince visited. He claimed to have come to pay respects to his imperial consort mother. However, Imperial Consort Xian wanted to refuse, as she did not really want to see him. But just keeping him outside the palace was not any way to act. Mu Jin, go and bring the eldest prince in. The eldest prince entered the hall and saw that all of the servants aside from Mu Jin had already been dismissed. Through a thin gauze curtain, he could vaguely see Imperial Consort Xian lying in bed with a pitch-black headcloth wrapped around her head. Just as he was about to walk in to speak, Mu Jin brought in a chair and set it outside of the curtain. The eldest prince's heart chilled and understood Imperial Consort Xian's thoughts. She was afraid. Son pays respects to Imperial Consort Mother. I heard that Imperial Consort Mother has not been feeling well, so Son specially came to visit. To let Imperial Consort Mother work so hard for such a long time is a result of Son's negligence. The eldest prince's attitude was sincere, and he did not bring up anything that would shock her. Imperial Consort Xian's expression faintly improved. She quietly said, "Taking care of His Majesty is the responsibility of the consorts and concubines. It can't be considered hard work. Imperial son working hard in court to share your father emperor's burdens is the same. It can't be considered negligence." The eldest prince looked up, then quickly looked back down. Supporting father emperor is something that a prince should do. Since Imperial Consort Mother has fallen ill and cannot take care of father emperor, it will fall to son to take your place. Whoosh! Imperial Consort Xian forcefully pulled the curtain open. She leaned forward, her complexion ashen, and there were tear marks in her eyes. "Are you trying to force your Imperial Consort Mother to do this?" Thunk! The eldest prince dropped to his knees and advanced toward her on his knees. "Imperial Consort Mother, it's you who is forcing son to do this. Didn't we already agree before this? How could you abandon your task halfway? If you don't continue, not only will our previous efforts be wasted, but once Ning Qingji is appointed as crown prince, there will be nothing but death left for the two of us. Since you won't do it, son has no choice but to continue for you." Imperial Consort Xian stood up from the bed and casually put on some slippers to help the eldest prince up. "What are you doing? Stand up first. How could Imperial Consort Mother force you to do such a dangerous task? You are Imperial Consort Mother's last hope. Rather than allow you to do it, it would be better to just leave it to me." But Imperial Consort Mother has been truly terrified these past few days. Have you not noticed that your father emperor's condition has started improving? The eldest prince loudly cut her off. That's because Imperial Consort Mother hasn't continued giving him the drug. That father emperor's condition has not deteriorated as we planned. He suddenly realized something and glanced toward the entrance of the hall. Fortunately, Imperial Consort Xian had already arranged for the gates to be shut. Imperial Consort Xian's face had turned pale from fear. Looking carefully, her hands were shaking, and the eldest prince hastily grabbed her hands. "Imperial Consort Mother, son isn't blaming you. Son is just too impatient. Imperial Consort Mother, please endure a little longer. As long as you continue with the poisoning, we will quickly be able to succeed. Haven't you always wanted to be the Empress?" The word Empress stirred Imperial Consort Xian's interest. She had spent all of these years compromising and being cautious, yet Emperor Ning was unwilling to even give her the title of noble imperial consort. Being the Empress was her dream. It was an unattainable dream. The eldest prince saw the look of longing in her eyes. He continued and used an enticing tone. "Imperial Consort Xian, once son defeats Ning Qingji and becomes the emperor, you would be the most venerated Empress Dowager. When that time comes, son's Empress will need to respectfully support you. Is that not nice?" Imperial Consort Xian took a deep breath and reached up to brush away her fringe, trying to look a little more dignified. The eldest prince knew that the ambitious Imperial Consort Xian had returned once more. Imperial Consort Xian said, "All right, then we'll do it as you planned. I will return to taking care of His Majesty tomorrow. But His Majesty's condition has been improving in the past few days, and I keep feeling that it's not just because I stopped poisoning him. I heard that Yu Fu from Marquis Gu's manor came into the palace and gave His Majesty a talisman. Could that be related to it? Marquis Gu's manor. The eldest prince squinted his eyes, thinking of how Yu Fu was an immortal practitioner of poison from a mortal's valley. A rush of fear filled his heart. It then quickly dissipated. He comforted Imperial Consort Xian. Imperial Consort Mother, when have you ever believed in religion? Although Yu Fu is an immortal practitioner of poison, Father Emperor's imperial physicians are always present. She doesn't have any chance to check Father Emperor's situation, nor can she find the existence of the poison. I believe it's Father believing in the power of the talisman. It's probably some psychological effect that is the cause of this improvement. Imperial Consort Xian nodded. You're right. I heard that His Majesty has been talking about how Yu Fu is filial and obedient. Her sincere feelings must have made His Majesty feel a little better. Even if Yu Fu is filial, it would only affect Marquis Gu's manor. How could it have any effect on His Majesty? Mother and son chatted for a little while longer, and the two felt at peace. Since they already decided to take action, there was no room to retreat. The eldest prince thought of the second prince's delighted expression over the past few days, and a feeling of displeasure filled his heart. Was someone of Ning Changji's temperament worthy of competing with him? If he had not been born from the late Empress belly, he might have secretly died in the palace long ago. He suddenly thought of something, and a scheming smile appeared on his face. Imperial Consort Mother, there's still something that I must trouble you with. What is it? Have some people go to the Western Palace to spread some rumors. You must ensure that Danyang hears them. Just say that once His Majesty passes away, and the Eastern Palace remains unoccupied, the court will become a chaotic mess from the fight for the throne. Imperial Consort Xian was extremely shocked. Are you crazy? Isn't this reminding Ning Changyi to quickly go and ask His Majesty to appoint a crown prince? If His Majesty appointed a crown prince before he passed away, his death would be too pointless. Hold on. Imperial Consort Xian suddenly thought of something and looked at the eldest prince with this grand revelation. This son of hers had truly grown up and matured. He was even able to think of this sort of scheme. Your Majesty, the second prince and Princess Danyang have come to visit you. Emperor Ning was in a good state today. Half laying in bed, he was reading through the reports from the past few days. He was also commenting on just about everything. Eunuch Gao brought in a new cup of hot tea and reported to Emperor Ning. Oh, those siblings came together. We are feeling quite well today. Have them come in to speak. Eunuch Gao bowed and retreated. Not long later, he led the second prince and Princess Danyang inside. Seeing Emperor Ning had the energy to look through reports, the two let out a sigh of relief. Emperor Ning lifted his eyelids. Seeing the siblings' expressions, he smiled and said, What? Did you start to worry that our condition started to worsen again after not seeing us for a couple of days? Don't worry. We are feeling better. Emperor Ning simply thought that the two were worried about his condition. That was why he put on such an expression. As for whether or not they were worried about Emperor Ning's condition, they could be considered as being worried, but it was not exactly the same as what Emperor Ning was thinking. A eunuch came out with some chairs, and the second prince and Princess Danyang sat down next to the bed to speak. It's good that Father Emperor's condition is improving. It seems that the imperial physicians were finally able to show some results for all of their studying. That's good. Sun can feel at ease. He was at ease because the position of crown prince would not end up remaining unoccupied. Princess Danyang glanced at the second prince. That's right. Father Emperor has been sick for a long time, and second brother has been worried this entire time. Father Emperor must quickly recover. Daughter is still waiting to go and see the peonies with you. Spring would be returning soon, and the flowers in the imperial garden would begin to bloom. Emperor Ning cheerfully looked at Princess Danyang. Very well. We hope that we will have fully recovered by then. But we feel that the improvements have not been related to the imperial physicians. The credit should go to Yu Fu. Yu Fu? The second prince and Princess Danyang were a little shocked. How could it be related to Yu Fu? Emperor Ning pulled out the talisman from beneath his pillow. This was given to us by Yu Fu when she came into the palace 2 days ago. She said that it's a talisman from Lingyin Temple, and she personally helped place it below our pillow. We feel very at ease sleeping with this. Just as he said this, he started violently coughing, and eunuch Gao hastily stepped forward to pat him on the back. The younger eunuch was keen-eyed and brought over a basin. Emperor Ning's face was bright red from coughing. After rinsing his mouth, he spat it into the basin. Suddenly, something blood-red appeared before the second prince's eyes. He was coughing up blood? This was horrible. It was no wonder word of His Majesty passing away even reached Danyang's side. It turned out his illness was already this severe. The second prince immediately gave Princess Danyang a look. Emperor Ning slowly got up and weakly smiled. Look, extreme joy begets sorrow is an idiom that perfectly describes us. It seems that these sorts of delightful words cannot be said. If they're said, some sort of scolding is sure to come. Princess Danyang stood up and said, Father Emperor, the spring flowers in the imperial garden have not yet bloomed, but a few days ago, I saw that the winter jasmines have already bloomed. Father's bedchamber is filled with the smell of medicine. How about I pick some winter jasmines and have them placed in this room? What does Father Emperor think? Emperor Ning had always doted on his only daughter. Naturally, anything that she said would be good. Thus he said, All right, you go ahead. Don't stay too long. We will be waiting until you get back to tell you a joke. Yes, daughter will definitely go quickly and return quickly. Eunuch Gao, bring a couple palace servants and come with me. I am worried that I won't be able to carry all of the flowers. Eunuch Gao bowed and complied, while Princess Danyang turned and secretly gave the second prince a look. After they left, only Emperor Ning and the second prince remained inside the bedchamber. Father and son came closer and chatted for a while. They quickly returned with the winter jasmines that bloomed the best. Just as they were about to be placed in a vase, they heard the sound of a cup being smashed. Eunuch Gao was startled and subconsciously took a few steps back. Emperor Ning's ferocious voice came from inside, impudent. We still have not died, yet you're already coveting the position of crown prince. Just what sort of intentions do you have in mind? Princess Danyang's complexion immediately turned pale. These words could not be cursing out anyone other than the second prince. Sure enough, the second prince's voice immediately followed. Father Emperor, son does not dare. Son would never dare. Son is just worried about. He could no longer continue to try and defend himself. It was only now that the second prince realized that he had fallen for someone's trap. Someone had deliberately spread rumors for Princess Danyang to hear. They used Princess Danyang to pass this on to him and have him quickly ask Emperor Ning to appoint him as crown prince. However, Emperor Ning never heard these rumors. As he saw it, it was the second prince who had run out of patience and could not wait for him to die and become the emperor. No matter how gentle a ruler, nor loving a father emperor, as long as his rule was threatened, it was inevitable that they would become furious. This was especially true when the one who made him feel threatened was his own beloved son. Emperor Ning was filled with bitterness, and the taste of iron filled his throat as he suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. Father Emperor! Father Emperor! What happened? The second prince loudly shouted in a miserable voice, as Eunuch Gao and the others hurriedly ran into the hall. It was only then that they found Emperor Ning leaning back in bed. A patch of his bedclothes had been dyed blood red. At the same time, there was some blood at the corners of his lips. His Majesty had coughed up blood. His Majesty had coughed up blood. Eunuch Gao's mind instantly became a mess. Relying on his base instincts, he began giving orders, quickly have someone go and bring in Marquis Gu and Prime Minister Yin. Also, get the other princes and the imperial concubines. If Emperor Ning suddenly died, this might be their last time. He did not know what Yu Fu had discovered, but he could tell from her defensiveness that Marquis Gu's manner had some insight into the matter. On the bed, Emperor Ning coughed in pain a few times. Gu Huaijiang, who was nearest to him, reached out and grabbed his hand. Your Majesty, are you feeling a little better? Emperor Ning raised his head in a daze. Seeing Gu Huaijiang sit next to the bed, he immediately felt much more at ease. Huaijiang, we have something to tell you, and you alone. Imperial Consort Xian, the eldest prince, and everyone else had hesitant looks on their faces. They did not know what Emperor Ning wanted to tell Gu Huaijiang after they left. They hesitated for a moment, but could only leave the chamber. Gu Shubai also brought Yu Fu and left. Right before leaving, Gu Huaijiang nodded to the two. Everyone anxiously waited outside the chamber, and they all had their own ideas in mind. Only the youngest, Yu Fu, stood under a pine tree outside of the bedchamber, looking up at the hatchlings in the tree. With the arrival of spring, even the birds are starting to hatch their eggs. At some point, In Shua had walked up behind her and accompanied her beneath the pine. Yu Fu did not turn her head and simply muttered, "As long as birds have a safe environment, they will only think of rearing their chicks." Unfortunately, aside from waiting for food with their mouths open, what else do chicks know to do? Gu Huaijiang stayed in Emperor Ning's bedchamber for a long time, all the way until the sun was casting shadows from the west. Only then did he come out. Everyone came forward, wanting to ask what he and Emperor Ning talked about. Fortunately, Gu Shubai was keen-eyed and quick to act, stepping forward first to support Gu Huaijiang. "My lords, His Majesty ordered us to leave. Naturally, he does not wish for us to know about the contents of their conversation. Our father still has not recovered from his illness, so we will be accompanying him back to the manor first. Farewell." In front of the officials, the prestige of the heir to Marquis Gu's manor did not lose out to Inshuas. If he said that he would be leaving, he would leave without any hesitation. Everyone could only watch the three of them leave. After this, Imperial Consort Xian subconsciously walked toward the bedchamber. Eunuch Gao stopped her in her tracks. "Your Highness Imperial Consort Xian, His Majesty said that he will not be seeing anyone tonight. He just wants to spend some quiet time. Would your Highness and my lords please go back?" This was the first time that Emperor Ning had stopped her from going in. Imperial Consort Xian's heart dropped, as she thought to herself that Emperor Ning should not have noticed anything, right? Thinking about it carefully, it could be that he only wanted some quiet time alone because the second prince had done something to infuriate him. The eldest prince gave her a look, and Imperial Consort Xian, as the highest-ranking member of the inner palace, stepped forward and said, "Since that's the case, would everyone please go back for now? Eunuch Gao, if anything happens here on His Majesty's side, you must immediately send someone to let us know." Eunuch Gao bowed in compliance. The second prince still felt a little unreconciled, only calming down after being held back by Princess Danyang. He had already made one mistake. If he went against Emperor Ning's wishes now and went inside to try and explain, that would just be another mistake. On the carriage ride back to the manor, Gu Huaijiang leaned against the soft wall of the carriage with his eyes closed to get some rest. Yu Fu held his wrist and nodded to Gu Shubai. He was just weak. The trip into the palace was exhausting, but there was nothing else wrong. Gu Huaijiang said, "Yu Fu, can His Majesty's health really last another 10 days? If not, no matter the cost, I must reveal the truth of his poisoning." Regardless of whose plot it was and regardless of who would resent Marquis Gu's manor, he could not just sit idly by while His Majesty was being poisoned. Gu Shubai furrowed his brow, knowing that Emperor Ning's poisoning had crossed a line for Gu Huaijiang. This was something that he absolutely could not forgive. But right now, Marquis Gu's manor was also in the middle of dealing with its own problems. They could not afford to make any mistakes. They needed to wait. They needed to wait for a turning point. Yu Fu nodded with certainty. "Head General, don't worry. At least 10 days. The ointment that you applied on His Majesty's wrist will have the same effect of dealing with the poison affecting His Majesty as the talisman." Gu Huaijiang spread his hand. His palm was wet. The black medicine had become colorless after being exposed to the air for such a long time. When Emperor Ning had woken up, he grabbed his wrist for the sake of secretly applying it on Emperor Ning's hand. "That's good." Gu Huaijiang finally felt at ease, leaning against the wall to get some more rest. Gu Shubai quietly said, "Yu Fu, you said that the medicine to treat father's poison is almost ready. Is that true?" I performed many experiments, and the answer is about to reveal itself." Eldest brother, don't worry. If this was not the case, I would not have allowed head general to come out. Compared to Emperor Ning's poisoning, Gu Shubai was more worried about Gu Huaijiang. After all, the poison affecting Emperor Ning could be treated by Yu Fu at any time. Hearing her say this, he felt at ease. Eldest brother, I observed Yin Shuo for you. I feel that he has nothing to do with this. When the previous prime minister was here, I never heard anything about the prime minister's manner taking either prince's side. Isn't that right? She had deliberately spoken about hatchlings in front of Yin Shuo for the sake of testing him. The old bird was Emperor Ning, while the hatchlings were the eldest prince and the second prince. The question was which one was the hatchling that only knows how to ask for food with its mouth open. Was it the eldest prince or the second prince? Gu Shubai nodded. He had also been favoring the idea that this was unrelated to Yin Shuo. It was just a matter of due diligence to get rid of that possibility. After all, Yin Shuo was not just a normal person. He was even harder to deal with than Yin Yin. Gu Huaijiang suddenly spoke up. The hatchling that only knows to ask is also the largest of the hatchlings. He doesn't just make excessive demands, but also tries to kill the old bird while framing the younger bird. His words completely confirmed what they had been speculating. Gu Shubai and Yu Fu exchanged a look, knowing that Gu Huaijiang's conclusion could not be wrong. Emperor Ning must have said something to him that allowed him to ascertain his judgment. That night, Yu Fu continued to adjust her medicine. During this time, only Gu Xiang and Gui had people bring her some pastries. With one hand handling poisons and one hand handling the pastries, who knew if Yu Fu would dare to eat them? Even then, there was nothing to be done about it. These past few days, they did not dare carelessly go to the western wing and disturb Yu Fu. They could only come up with this idea to express their thanks to Yu Fu. In the main hall, Gu Huaijiang ordered for a brush and ink to be brought to him before sitting in front of his desk for a long period of time. Raising his brush and dipping it in ink, he wrote the truth behind Emperor Ning's poisoning on a clean report scroll. He then sealed the report and sat for a little while longer. He knew that once this report reached Emperor Ning, if the eldest prince was the one to ascend the throne, Marquis Gu's manor would certainly meet a disastrous end. But retreat was not an option. This tone. Author's note, Tian Shu. Of all the numbers that exist, why did you have to make me her second senior disciple? The swordsman in white retreated to the side. At this time, Gu Huaijiang also heard the sound and came out. Gu Shubai stepped forward to support him. He then saw a gust of wind rush in from the outside, as it spun near him before departing. This sort of feeling was as if someone was holding a large fan next to him. He had to keep his eyes closed and could only feel the wind. He could not see anyone. He reached out to try and grab the source of the wind, but his hand was slapped away. Like the wind, a person's figure rushed past and stopped next to Yu Fu. They just saw a thin old man in white clothes with long eyebrows that drooped down to his shoulders. His beard was faintly swaying. He glanced sideways at Gu Shubai. Is this the heir to Marquis Gu's manor? Yu Fu delightedly said, Master, how did you know? This old man in white clothes that was like the wind was Yu Fu's master, the one with the lofty title of deity of medicine. Sun Chi Gu Huaijiang immediately put on a resolute expression, refusing Gu Shubai's support and standing in a dignified manner. He snorted, then turned to look at Gu Shubai, his face full of disdain. It's because I immediately found him to be particularly loathsome upon seeing him. Everyone. The flower that he had worked so hard to raise was stolen away by this brat, planter, and all. How could he possibly not detest Gu Shubai? Gu Huaijiang stepped forward and cupped his hands, performing a salute from the younger generation. We were unaware that the great deity of medicine would be coming, and we of the younger, humph. A gust of wind quickly rose, and a mess arose in front of everyone's eyes. After everything calmed down, Sun Chi was already standing in front of Gu Huaijiang, while holding his wrist. Younger generation? What younger generation? If we really get down to the generations, Even your country's Empress Dowager was someone from my grandson's generation. Look at yourself, brat. A dignified general reduced to such a sorry state. It's one thing for your manners guards to be rendered useless, but even you are on the verge of dying from being poisoned. Sun Qi's expression was full of disdain. He quickly returned to Yu Fu's side. You insisted on staying here, and especially sent an urgent letter requesting that I come. Here I was wondering what sort of person Gu Huaijiang was, but it turns out that this is all. Look, does he know how to raise a child? Your face has gotten thinner from hunger. You, unable to bear watching his father be humiliated, Gu Hanemo moved to pull his sword out but was stopped by Gu Shubai. This was Yu Fu's master. The deity of medicine, Sun Qi, was a person from outside the realm of civilization, so it was understandable if he said some impolite things. Most importantly, Yu Fu had written to ask him to treat Gu Huaijiang's illness, and he had come. This was enough to show what he thought of Marquis Gu's manner. Hard-mouthed but soft-hearted. This person who was famed for being immortal also had this sort of childish side. Sun Qi turned his head and glanced at Gu Shubai. Don't think that I will like you just because you act nice. Rather, I like those who are naughty. Young child over there, come here. He reached out and gestured for Gu Hanemo to come over. Gu Hamo's expression became even colder. A man of his age being called a young child was very humiliating. But how old was this deity of medicine? If it was as he said, and even the Empress Dowager was from his grandson's generation, it would not be strange for him to see him as a young child. If you pulled out your sword like this, wouldn't he have no chance of stopping you? Sun Qi moved in a flash. When he stopped, the sword at Gu Hanmo's hip was already in his hand. If Yu Fu's second senior disciple was as agile as a bird in flight, Sun Qi was like a feather, floating with the wind. Nobody could clearly see his movements unless he deliberately slowed them down. He had only demonstrated 2 moves, yet nobody, not even Gu Huaijiang, could take their eyes away. After the demonstration, he tossed the sword to Gu Hanemo. Tun Shu, test him out. Just as he said this, the swordsman in white, called Tian Shu, stabbed his sword toward Gu Hanmo's chest. Yu Fu hastily moved away, not forgetting to pick up the little white rabbit. She walked off to the side to watch. The meager amount of martial arts that she had learned was not at all enough to understand the exchange between Tian Shu and Gu Hanemo. Gu Huaijiang and the others, however, were able to see perfectly clearly. Just by watching Sun Qi demonstrate it once, Gu Hanmo's movements immediately showed improvement. It was as if he had been enlightened. Something that others might struggle to learn in 3 to 5 years, Gu Hanemo had done in a mere few moments. It was truly worthy of praise. After 3 exchanges, Tian Shu put his sword away, a faint hint of approval appearing on his icy expression. For a normal person to reach this level, after just 1 demonstration from Sun Qi was already very good. Of course, he was still too lacking compared to a disciple of Immortal's Valley. Gu Hanemo looked at Sun Qi. His usually cold expression was full of awe. As he became much more respectful towards Sun Qi, the strong would never submit to seniority. They could only be convinced by strength. Sun Qi's strength was worthy of being called divine. Sun Qi, however, looked at him with some displeasure. How stupid. You're even dumber than my student. 2 men with high-level martial abilities and icy expressions now felt their faces turn green. Sun Qi dusted his hands before slowly walking over to Yu Fu's side. Come, let me see this pitiful little rabbit. Oh, has it been taking quite a bit of poison these past few days? Yu Fu finally found a chance. She had a number of things that she wanted to ask Sun Qi. Master, is the smell of tree crawler removed by using daylily? Aside from honeysuckle and licorice root, can heartbreak grass be treated with mung bean extract? Master, Sun Qi angrily stomped his foot. I came from so far, yet you only concern yourself with Gu Huaijiang. You don't even know to invite me in to rest first? The spoiled way in which he stomped his foot was so enchanting. Everyone exchanged a glance. On the positive side, he had the power of a divine being, but what of his abnormal behavior? Dinner took place in the main hall, and everyone remained silent. Gu Huijiang, who usually sat at the head seat, gave up his seat and sat below. Sun Qi and Tian Shu had not yet come. Gu Huijiang had ordered for a separate courtyard to be tidied up and prepared for the two to stay in. They had sent people to invite them 15 minutes ago, so why was it that they still had not arrived? Yu Fu sat next to Gu Huijiang and secretly said about preparing them, "Head General, Master doesn't like eating meat and prefers to eat vegetarian. That's why all of the vegetarian dishes should be placed in front of him, but you absolutely must advise him to eat meat." He did not like eating meat, yet they had to advise him to eat meat. What sort of reasoning was this? Gu Huijiang asked, and Yu Fu glanced at the door before saying, "Master is indeed getting quite old. If his words offend head general or elder brothers, I will apologize beforehand on Master's behalf." In regards to that, everyone had already prepared themselves. It seemed that this deity of medicine was not at all reserved when speaking. "Yu Fu, are you bad-mouthing us?" Everyone looked up. At some point, Sun Qi had already taken a seat at the head seat, yet none of them had even noticed. Such a terrifying ability, aside from immortals, there were likely no normal people who could do this. Yu Fu cheerfully toadied up to him. "I was saying that Master is of noble character and are already 200 years old. In your eyes, everyone is a young child, and you weren't trying to humiliate anyone." "Nonsense." Sun Qi's white beard was on the verge of turning red from anger. "Am I that old? I am clearly only 150 years old." To normal people who have lifetimes of a handful of decades, there was not much difference between 150 and 200. Everyone remained very obedient. In front of such an old and venerated ancestor, how could these young children have any right to speak? As the head of Marquis Gu's manor, this was the first time that Gu Huijiang had experienced such a feeling. This feeling of being so far beneath someone else. He quietly reminded himself that he must not offend the deity of medicine. He absolutely must not offend him. He was to be a future in-law to Marquis Gu's manor. Whether or not Yu Fu could successfully marry Gu Shubai all depended on the deity of medicine. Yu Fu said, "That's right. Master is very young. Master, let's quickly get eating. The trip must have been difficult." Gu Huijiang also said, "That's right, deity of medicine, please eat. You've come so far from Immortal's Valley to treat the poison of this member of the younger generation, and I am very grateful for that." "Nonsense. I didn't come to treat the poison." Sun Qi suddenly pulled out a red string from his clothes. Brushing his long beard, he tied it all together with the string. His long white beard was tied together by this red string, separating it into two distinct parts. It was just like an old granny wearing a flower. No matter how one looked at it, it looked funny. Gui could not help but let out a laugh. Tian Shu expressionlessly looked at him, and he was no longer able to laugh. Yu Fu's second senior disciple, why was he exactly like their third brother, having such cold expressions? It was as if the two were brothers. Having taken care of his beard, Sun Qi said, "I came to see how Yu Fu was doing, and while I was here, I would take a look to see just how prestigious Marquis Gu's manor is to dare write a letter asking to marry our Yu Fu. Did you know that our Yu Fu is, Master, here, eat?" Yu Fu lifted the lid, and a bowl of freshly cooked water spinach was displayed in front of Sun Qi. This familiar green color faintly made his face look a little green. Gui picked up a chicken leg from the plate in front of him. "That's right, deity of medicine. Yu Fu said that you like eating vegetarian dishes. This is a dish that Father specifically ordered the kitchen to prepare. It's completely vegetarian. Quickly try some." One by one, the lids were lifted from the bowls, and all of them contained leafy vegetables. Now, Sun Qi's face really did turn green. Just before he was about to erupt, Gu Huijiang remembered what Yu Fu had said and hastily brought a chicken leg before Sun Qi. Although deity of medicine has few worldly desires, sticking to a vegetarian diet since you have come to my Marquis Gu's manor, how could I leave you to just eat vegetarian? Sun Qi's eyes immediately lit up. He deliberately put on an air of steadiness and nodded, bitterly saying, "Although I do not like eating meat, since it would be ungracious to refuse Marquis Gu's kindness, I have no choice but to accept." Saying this, he picked up a chicken leg and began eating it. The way that he ate was even worse than Gui after being starved for 3 days. The dignified deity of medicine had fallen to such a low over a single chicken leg. Was this his humanity being distorted, or had his morals withered away? This deity of medicine was truly too entertaining. It was no wonder he could raise a girl as cute as Yufu. Look, it was just a chicken leg, yet the way that he addressed Gu Huaijiang had changed from brat to Marquis Gu. Everyone thought that they could eat in peace, but who knew that Sun Qi would wipe his mouth, then place his oily hand on Gu Huaijiang's wrist. Even though the young sirs of Marquis Gu's manor were raised well, they could not help but frown upon seeing this. If anyone else had dared to place their oily hand on them, they would have been sent flying long ago. Why else would it be said that Gu Huaijiang had a good attitude? He actually maintained his composure and did not show any disdain for the oily hand. Yufu was also looking expectantly at Sun Qi, while Tianshu just focused on eating. From beginning to end, he never looked at anyone else. All of Sun Qi's actions were within his expectations. After eating and drinking their fill, master and disciple went with Yu Fu back to her courtyard. Master and disciple had not seen each other for a long time, thus they must have a great deal to talk about. In the main hall, Gu Shubai and the others were rejoicing. The poison affecting Gu Huaijiang could finally be treated. Yu Fu had worked so tirelessly for so many days to discover a prescription that she did not dare use lightly, yet who knew that Sun Qi would be able to immediately reach a conclusion just by checking Gu Huaijiang's pulse. He truly is a divine person 150 years of age. Is there even a need for him to walk? He might as well be floating, being able to reach you just like that. Gui was the most excited, admiringly saying, "If he could also teach me how he walks the same way that he gave third brother advice, wouldn't I be unbeatable in this world? If he could not win, he would run, and nobody would be able to outrun him." Gu Xiang tapped him on the head. "Just look at yourself. Rather than asking deity of medicine to give you advice when it comes to using your sword, you wanted to ask him for advice on how to escape. What sort of unbeatable would that be?" Gu Hanamo, however, said, "Deity of medicine's ability is not something that we of the younger generation can learn, but I am quite interested in that Tianshu." Gui felt a sudden chill. He had never heard his third brother say that he was interested in anyone. Who knew that the first time he heard it, he would be talking about another man? Gu Hanamo glanced at him, and the latter quietly lowered his head, not daring to reveal his imagination. Gu Huaijiang shook his head with a smile. During this time that he had been poisoned, everyone in the manor had held their breath and kept quiet. Even the usually rowdy Gu Xiang and Gu Yi were not in the mood to play around. Yu Fu, who brought them great joy, spent her days working to create an antidote, which left Marquis Gu's manor in a depressed state. Finally being able to hear some laughter today, his mood improved significantly. Did you really think that deity of medicine is only 150 years old, as he claims? With Gu Huaijiang speaking up, everyone looked at him in shock. Could it be that 150 was not old enough? Could it be as Yu Fu said, and deity of medicine really was 200? Gu Huaijiang said, "Have you guys noticed that deity of medicine's eyebrows have already reached his shoulders? Apparently, very long eyebrows are a sign of a long life. For people who have eyebrows that curve a little, they tend to live a few decades longer than the average person. Moreover, his eyebrows droop down to his shoulders. Father has only ever seen such an appearance in one other place." "What place is that?" "A Taoist temple, Changmei Zhenren." Changmei Zhenren. That was a Taoist who had ascended to become a deity. "Yu Fu, let me take a look at you. You must have suffered wrongs in this shoddy Marquis manor." Sun Qi had Yu Fu spin around. Before Yu Fu could react, she was spun around in the opposite direction. After looking at Yu Fu over twice, Sun Qi was beside himself. "Why have you become so thin? Are they not giving you anything to eat?" Tianshu stood to the side and hastily sighed. "Master, Yu Fu has grown much taller. How could she not have anything to eat?" The dignified Marquis Gu's manner would not be reserved when it came to giving her food, right? Sun Qi glared at him. In front of others, this disciple was cold and blank like the snow. When it was just him and Yu Fu, he became much more talkative. Could he not be a little less extreme? Tianshu quietly moved to the side, no longer daring to interject. Yu Fu glanced at him. Master, second senior disciple is right. Look, haven't I grown taller? Auntie Lee said that girls will all get thinner when they grow taller. If I was still as fat as I was when I little, how ugly would that be? Nonsense. Who would dare say that you're fat? When you were young, you were round like a panda cub. Yu Fu, who wanted to be a panda cub? She was a girl. But Sun Chi had always treated his disciples equally, with there being no difference between males and females, with those sent to study poisons by Western Kuan being the exception. Yu Fu was worried that Sun Chi would blame the people of Marquis Gu's manor for not taking good care of her. Thus she decided to speak first. Master, I heard that young children can't just eat vegetables. They need to eat meat to grow tall. Last year, when I left the valley, others were laughing at me for being short. Sun Chi guiltily ran his fingers through his beard. Only by eating vegetables can you have the demeanor of an immortal and move swiftly like lightning. It would be best to eat less oily meats. Even if you are away from the valley, you must remember to eat more vegetables. Do you understand? Oily meats? Like the chicken legs from dinner? Yu Fu did not bring it up, but silently rejoiced. It seemed that Sun Chi did not plan on bringing her back with him. Tianshu finally had a chance to speak to Yu Fu. Yu Fu, do you plan on staying in Marquis Gu's manor the entire time? The country's situation has changed. Those people who were sent to search for you have already left. You can go anywhere you want. There's no need to worry about anything. All of this had already been mentioned in Sun Chi's earlier letters, and Yu Fu already understood. Second senior disciple, I know, but I still don't want to go back right now. Sun Chi let out a snort. Could it be that you've really set your eyes on that brat, the heir to Marquis Gu? What's so good about him? I will need to test him. If he is unworthy of being with you, I will absolutely refuse this engagement. Tianshu took this opportunity to say, Master, then can I test the third young sir? Yu Fu looked at him with a smile and thought that the two of them really were birds of the same feather. One person with a cold expression had found another with a cold expression. Tianshu and Gu Hanemo had found their match and wanted to stand opposite one another. During their first meeting today, those few exchanges had been very fun. Sun Chi waved his hand and said, Go ahead. Knock him down and let the people of Marquis Gu's manor see a little of the world. Without the slightest bit of ability, don't even think of trying to take Yu Fu away. Father, can I go and exchange pointers with Tianshu? After dispersing, Gu Hanemo was unable to hold back and brought up what he truly desired. Everyone stopped in their tracks. Gu Hanemo was a martial arts idiot. What he loved doing most each day aside from sword training was sword training. Today, he had seen the unique style of Immortals Valley, and that was what he yearned for. He naturally did not dare to look for Sun Chi to exchange pointers. The result of that would be a foregone conclusion. But exchanging pointers with Tianshu, he felt that there was still a possibility of winning. Gu Huijiang looked over at Gu Shubai. He was the young sir of Marquis Gu's manor with the best martial ability. He wanted to hear what he thought about this. Gu Shubai said, Tianshu is a disciple of Immortals Valley, but deity of medicine's main accomplishments are in medicine and poisons, not martial arts. Tianshu's abilities are strange, and he is agile like a bird, but when it comes to pure strength, he might not be able to beat third brother. Sun believes that allowing them to exchange pointers will allow us to learn some of Immortals Valley's secrets. It would also be helpful to us in our martial arts. Gu Huijiang nodded. Since your eldest brother has said it, go ahead. But at the end of the day, he is Yu Fu's senior disciple, thus he is Marquis Gu's manor's guest. Yes. Gu Hanemo performed a rushed salute, then basically sprinted out of the main hall. Everyone looked at him in a daze from the back. This meant that he was going to look for Tianshu right now? It was rare to see Gu Hanemo get so excited, and Gui and Gu Xiang were the first to react. Third brother, wait for us? We want to watch. Aside from Gu Huijiang, everyone followed after him, but who would have known that they would run into Tianshu and Yu Fu along the way? Their eyes meeting, the two sides reached a tacit understanding. What a coincidence. They were both anxious to start fighting. It felt like a powder keg. Yu Fu did not have much understanding of martial arts, thus wanted to leave first to avoid getting hurt. Gu Shubai saw that she was carrying her medicine kit and said, "Yu Fu, where are you going?" "The antidote has already been made with the 2 medicines that Master mentioned added in. I was just about to go and give it to Head General." Gu Shubai said, "I will go with you. Second brother, keep an eye on them and stop them when it's time." Gu Jiogu nodded. "Eldest brother, don't worry." The two returned to the main hall with the antidote. Behind a screen, Yu Fu began performing acupuncture for Gu Huaijiang. This medicine needed to be given together with acupuncture to properly treat the poison within. The candlelight was bright, casting Yu Fu's shadow onto the screen. Gu Shubai sat in the outer area with something on his mind. He suddenly started wondering how they should treat Emperor Ning's poisoning. After a long time, Yu Fu helped Gu Huaijiang lie down to rest, then walked out from behind the screen. At the same time, the sound of footsteps came from the courtyard outside the main hall along with the sound of chatter. "Hush, Head General just started resting." Everyone hastily lowered their voices as Gu Jiogu said, "How is father doing?" Yu Fu wiped away the sweat on her brow. "With medicine personally adjusted by Master, it's guaranteed that he will be fine. Head General is already completely fine. It's just that he's been overly exhausted and needs to rest. Let's come and see him again tomorrow morning." Gu Huaijiang was fine. This allowed everyone to finally feel relieved. Gu Shubai looked around the group. "Why has third brother not returned?" He's still fighting. I think those two would need to fight all day and all night to find the victor, yet neither is willing to back down." Gui was getting sleepy just watching them go back and forth. Everyone thought it over and decided to return to the main hall to check on Gu Huaijiang's condition. Gu Jiogu said, "Eldest brother, don't worry. Out of deference to Yu Fu, the two of them will know to act within proper boundaries." They closed the door to Gu Huaijiang's bedchamber, then moved out to the courtyard to speak. Gu Xiang held his hand as if holding a sword, then performed a demonstration in an open space. Gu Shubai's eyes lit up upon seeing this. "This is Tian Shu's technique?" "Yes, we watched them fight around and felt that there were quite a few benefits." "What does eldest brother think?" Gu Shubai thought about it for a bit, then sidestepped the question, saying, "It turns out that this deity of medicine isn't the only one with a stern mouth but soft insides. Yu Fu, this second senior disciple, is also the same." Gu Xiang did not understand. How was this related to whether or not Tian Shu had a stern mouth? Gu Wenqing said, "Eldest brother means to say that Tian Shu is deliberately teaching us the essence of his techniques. Isn't that right?" Saying this, he turned to Gu Jiogu, and the latter revealed a smile. It seemed that he had noticed it long ago. This true. High-level martial artists would not reveal the essence of their techniques so easily, but Tian Shu's techniques could even be understood by Gu Yi and Gu Xiang. It's clear that he's deliberately trying to teach us. Gu Wenqing saying it like this made Gu Xiang and Gu Yi unhappy. What did he mean by even they understood? It sounded like he was saying that their martial abilities were very poor. But in Marquis Gu's manner, aside from Yu Fu, it seemed that they were indeed the worst. Gu Shubai smiled and said, "The Gu family's martial have always been extremely rigid and insufficiently flexible. This is something that father realized a long time ago but has never been able to fully remedy the problem. Since deity of medicine and Tian Shu want to help us, you must be sure to learn properly. Do you understand?" Everyone looked over at Yu Fu, feeling very grateful. If not for Yu Fu, how could Sun Qi, who never left a mortal's valley, have come to save Gu Huaijiang? And how could he have allowed Tian Shu to teach them the essence of his martial arts? It was not Marquis Gu's manner that had taken in Yu Fu. It was Yu Fu who had always been helping Marquis Gu's manner. Absolutely must be treated by the deity of medicine. Part 3. Early in the morning, a loud cry came from the guest courtyard. "Oh no, the deity of medicine is missing." A servant had carried a basin of warm water in for Sun Qi to wash up. However, They found the bed completely empty and went to feel the blankets. They were cold. He cried out in fear, dreading that something might have happened to an old man over 100 years old, but he suddenly felt a pain from the back of his head. Looking carefully, there was a small wudong branch laying on the ground. He hastily ran below the tree and looked up. Through the many layers of branches, Sun Qi lay at the very top of the tree. So damn noisy. Don't scream so stupidly. Gu Shubai heard the commotion and rushed over. Arriving below the tree, he found that Sun Qi was at the top, deity of medicine. Did you sleep at the top of the tree last night? The servant raised his head with dread. How could a person possibly sleep at the top of a tree, much less a person over the age of 100? What if he rolled over and fell to the ground? Sun Qi waved to him, "Brat, come up here to speak." Yesterday, he had also called Gu Huaijiang the same way. It seemed that there was something a little off with the seniority. Gu Shubai did not hesitate and leaped up the wudong tree and quickly arrived next to Sun Qi. Sun Qi brushed his beard and slightly nodded. Although you are a little more nimble than a wild boar, there have been some improvements. It seems that you also learned a bit from the demonstration for your family's third son. A wild boar. The deity of medicine's comparisons really strayed from the beaten path. Gu Shubai modestly saluted. Many thanks, deity of medicine, for passing on this knowledge. Everyone in Marquis Gu's manor is thankful for deity of medicine's advice. Sun Qi snorted. I am afraid that your martial arts will be too lacking to protect you, Fu. During my time here in Marquis Gu's manor, I will properly train you. Starting now dash. Just as he said this, he stuck out his foot, kicking Gu Shubai down from the tree. When Sun Qi moved quickly, Gu Shubai could not even see a blur. He only felt a strong force that could not be stopped push him from the top of the tree. By the time that he had reacted, he had already fallen half of the way down. The servant standing beneath the tree hastily dodged out of the way, loudly shouting, "Someone, come quickly! The eldest young sir." Yu Fu, Gu Jiugu, and the others rushed into the courtyard and saw Gu Shubai quickly falling from the wudong tree. Sitting at the top of the tree was an old man shrouded in a divine aura. Sun Qi sat there calmly with a faint smile on the corners of his lips. It was clearly a delight derived from watching someone else in trouble. Eldest brother. Falling from the top of a wudong tree that was a full 3 stories tall was not an insignificant matter, and Yu Fu let out a shrill scream. Eldest brother is talking about His Majesty? Aside from Emperor Ning, she had not heard of anyone else being poisoned. After much thought, he could only be speaking of Emperor Ning. Gui said in confusion, but the poison affecting His Majesty can be treated by Yu Fu. Why bother troubling the deity of medicine? Gu Shubai smiled and said, No, His Majesty absolutely must be treated by the deity of medicine. Author's note. Do any of my little cuties know why it must be treated by the deity of medicine? You want me to treat Emperor Ning's poisoning? I don't want to. Sun Qi ate crab cakes while resolutely refusing. From the moment that Gu Shubai sat down next to him, he had already eaten 11 cakes. He cast an inquisitive gaze at Yu Fu. Would he really not feel stuffed from eating like this? Yu Fu shook her head and whispered into his ear. Immortal's Valley doesn't have much delicious food. Aside from vegetables, there are only wild herbs. Finally being able to come out for a trip, just let Master eat whatever he pleases. What did you say? Sun Qi was in the middle of stuffing a 12th crab cake into his mouth, as Yu Fu hastily said, I was asking eldest brother if there were any more crab cakes in the manor. If there are, just have them brought to Master to be eaten as snacks. Gu Shubai very smoothly played along. Right? Yu Fu was talking to me about this. That was roughly correct. Sun Qi snorted. Don't think that you can win me over with food. I am the dignified deity of medicine. How could I possibly be swayed by just a bit of food? After saying this, he stuffed another crab cake into his mouth. In the main hall, Gu Huaijiang's was slowly recuperating, and he retrieved the report from beneath his desk. It was time to give it to Emperor Ning. If he delayed it any further, he was worried that something would happen to Emperor Ning. Prepare the carriage. I will be going into the palace. Qian quickly entered the room. Lord Marquis, your body only just recovered. It's inadvisable to go into the palace. Please wait until you have fully recovered before going into the palace to visit His Majesty. He had served Gu Huaijiang for a long time. He was able to have a vague sense of what was bothering Gu Huaijiang. Gu Huaijiang looked at him and said after a long pause, I can afford to wait, but His Majesty cannot. If anything bad were to happen to His Majesty, how could I, as a subject of the country, have the face to continue my work as an official? Qian still wanted to advise against it some more, but he did not dare say more upon seeing Gu Huaijiang's resolute expression. Help me get changed. He spread his arms and slowly closed his eyes. Lord Marquis, Eunuch Gao has come with a decree. Gu Huaijiang immediately opened his eyes, his heart filled with panic and uneasiness. At this time, what could Eunuch Gao have to decree at a time like this? Could it be that His Majesty... He pushed Qian aside and looked at the person who had come. What was the decree? He said that it's related to the deity of medicine. Steward Qi has already led him to the guest courtyard. Qian let out a sigh of relief and stepped forward, saying, Lord Marquis' mind is in disarray from concern. Nothing would happen to His Majesty. If something really happened, the palace's funeral bells would have already tolled. What would there be any need to wait for a decree? You're right. I am being overly anxious. Gu Huaijiang had a feeling that he was deceiving his ruler. He clearly knew that Emperor Ning was poisoned, and he had suspicions of who had done it. However, he did not report it despite his knowledge. He could only have Yu Fu use small tricks to keep the poison at bay. He had always lived a straightforward and upright life. Even such a small deceit had become guilt that he could not bear. Lord Deity of Medicine, His Majesty of my Eastern Ling is afflicted with a serious illness. Hearing that Deity of Medicine has come to Eastern Ling, he wished to ask for you to come into the palace to perform an examination. The imperial carriage is waiting just outside of Marquis Gu's manor. Eunuch Gao was respectful and reverent, bending at the waist like a tree after a heavy snowfall. Standing in the courtyard, he did not dare show the slightest disrespect. They did not even dare to get too close to Sun Qi, dreading that the deity of medicine would be fussy about all manners of things and would dislike them getting close. Speaking of, this was not their first time interacting with this great deity of medicine. The previous time, Emperor Ning had sent them to Immortal's Valley to invite him over, hoping that he would treat the late Empress' illness. However, they were flatly refused. At that time, Immortal's Valley only had a young child come out to receive them, saying that the deity of medicine was in seclusion and would not be seeing anyone. The special envoy sent by the dignified Emperor Ning of Eastern Ling, while the deity of medicine had sent a young child to send them away. It could be seen just how haughty he was. As for whether or not he was truly in seclusion, this had always remained unknown. Yu Fu was a little surprised, quietly saying to Gu Shubai, How did the palace learn of this news so quickly? Gu Shubai quietly said, His Majesty has been sick for a long time, and the palace's imperial physicians are at a loss over what to do. Some have even begun visiting the famous folk doctors, so it's natural that they would be more sensitive to the deity of medicine's movements. Moreover, your second senior disciple injured tens of soldiers yesterday. Even if we wanted to hide this fact, it would be hard. Then what should we do? We still haven't been able to convince Master, yet the palace has already sent someone over. Master will definitely refuse. I won't go. Sure enough, Sun Qi sent Eunuch Gao away with just a few words. His lips parted slightly, and the people standing in the middle of the courtyard only saw his white beard faintly quiver, yet the rang out like a large bell. Yu Fu and Gu Shubai, who were seated next to him, covered their ears. Some of the people in the courtyard started to tremble, and some bowed even deeper. Eunuch Gao hastily said, Lord Deity of Medicine, His Majesty said that as long as you are willing to go into the palace to examine him, he is willing to pay 10,000 taels of gold as thanks. If Lord Deity of Medicine does not want money, His Majesty is also fine with any other condition. After the Empress Dowager had been treated by the Deity of Medicine, she lived until she was 80 years old. That was an age that very few lived to see. Emperor Ning was not just taking this measure to treat his illness. It was also for the sake of trying to extend his life. Sun Qi's voice returned to normal. What a joke. What is there that I want that I can't have? Is there any need for your ruler to give it to me? Your ruler really is haughty. When your Empress Dowager was ill, the ruler at the time personally went to make the request. A cold sweat dripped from eunuch Gao's brow. Sure enough, this deity of medicine was not easy to take care of. He did not want 10,000 taels of gold, and he did not care about the chance to make any request of the emperor. What exactly did he want? The second prince was shocked and could not recover, while Princess Danyang finally realized just how powerful Yu Fu's pillar of support was. It was no wonder that she said that her connection to Immortals Valley would be able to provide Marquis Gu's manor a life free of worry. The eldest prince's expression was the ugliest. This deity of medicine was even more divine than in the rumors, summoning rain or wind with just a flick of his hands. What difference was there from a god? If he was willing to go into the palace to treat Emperor Ning would definitely be cured, and all of his hard work would have been for naught. It was also very likely that he and imperial consort Xian would see their lives in peril. The second prince had been rudely pushed back by a wall of wind summoned by Sun Qi, but he did not dare get annoyed in the slightest. Yes, it was all this member of the younger generation's fault for forgetting propriety. I am the second prince of Eastern Ling, Ning Chengji. If I may be so presumptuous as to invite deity of medicine into the palace to treat Father Emperor. Not only can everything that eunuch Gao just said be honored, this member of the younger generation guarantees that I will take care of Sister Yu Fu, and help deity of medicine take care of Yu Fu. After saying this, he lifted the hem of his robe and dropped to his knees, performing a grand kowtow. Second brother, Danyang wanted to rush forward to stop him, but was stopped by a palace made behind her. Gu Shubai took note of this. At a time like this, regardless of why she wanted to stop the second prince, what would spread would be the crime of being unfilial. A wise person should not move at a time like this, for example. His eyes landed on the eldest prince, who was standing behind Princess Danyang. It was possible that the eldest prince wished for Sun Qi to immediately refuse and insist that he would not go into the palace to treat Emperor Ning. However, he was able to endure. He just had a bit of a stiff expression, but he did not do anything excessive. The second prince kneeled very properly, and Sun Qi was a little moved. Back when your imperial grandmother was severely ill, it was the ruler at the time who personally visited to request treatment. I took their deep affection into consideration, and that's why I left the valley to give treatment. You kneeling for your father emperor today is indeed filial. The second prince heard this and suddenly raised his head, his eyes full of hope. But Sun Qi let out a faint snort, saying with dissatisfaction, "You are not the one with the greatest status here. You coming to ask me is not enough." Everyone thought that he was pointing at the eldest prince, and their eyes all turned to the eldest prince. The corner of the eldest prince's mouth twitched as he stepped forward with the intention of, "Have Gu Huaijiang come and ask me, and I will consider it for a moment." The eldest prince's foot froze in midair and awkwardly returned to his original spot. It turned out that he was speaking of Gu Huaijiang. Hearing this uncourteous tone, it was clear that he felt some dissatisfaction toward Gu Huaijiang, and he wanted to embarrass him. Yu Fu glanced at Gu Shubai, not really understanding what her master was planning. As for Gu Shubai, he seemed to have an idea, giving Yu Fu a reassuring look and motioning for her to just watch. After Gu Huaijiang heard about the decree, he headed to the small courtyard to take a look at the situation. When he arrived outside the courtyard, he heard Sun Qi's words. Passing through the gate, he looked at everyone's expressions. The second prince was kneeling at a distance from Sun Qi with an anxious look on his face, allowing him to gain a rough understanding of the situation. Eunuch Gao looked at him as if he was a life-saving benefactor. Lord Marquis, look. He naturally did not dare directly ask Gu Huaijiang to beg Sun Qi even if he devoted himself to support the ruler's life. He absolutely did not dare to offend this great general with many exploits, not to mention him, but even the second prince could only look at him with an expectant gaze, hoping that he would make this request of Sun Qi. Sun Qi crossed one leg over the other and swayed the tips of his toes, waiting for Gu Huaijiang to beg him. Gu Huaijiang was very cooperative, stepping forward and bowing. This member of the younger generation begs deity of medicine to go into the palace to treat his majesty. This member of the younger generation kneels to beg deity of medicine to go into the palace to treat his majesty. Author's note: the deity of medicine's actions will be explained. Once these words were spoken, everyone looked at Gu Huaijiang in absolute shock. As Easternling's first-rank head general and marquis, he did not even need to kneel when meeting with Emperor Ning. Could those knees casually be bent to someone else? Sun Qi's actions were clearly meant to humiliate Gu Huaijiang. Gu Huaijiang was the one who took the initiative to bring up kneeling. It was clear that he was willing to discard his own dignity for Emperor Ning's sake. Such a shocking display caused even the second prince to tear up. "Father, you mustn't." Who knew who had let out this cry? However, it was already too late. Gu Huaijiang lifted the hem of his robe and started dropping to his knees with his back straight. Before his knees hit the ground, a strong wind suddenly came and stopped him. No matter how he tried, he could not fully kneel. Everyone was shocked to find Sun Qi with his hand raised in midair, and something like a whirlwind was holding Gu Huaijiang in place, slowly straightening him up. Sun Qi grinned with satisfaction. Forget it. Forget it. I am already satisfied just seeing you have the heart to do it. There's no need for you to kneel. In the future, taking care of my Yufu is what truly matters. His Yufu. Everyone present had a different reaction, immediately understanding what Sun Qi was hinting at. For the sake of Yufu's future life in Marquis Gu's manor, he did not wish to offend Gu Huaijiang. It could be seen just how much he doted on her. Could it be that he had come this time for the sake of treating Gu Huaijiang for Yufu? When they had seen Gu Huaijiang in the palace yesterday, he had looked very sick, needing Yufu and Gu Shubai to support him. Today, he was able to walk around on his own. The second prince's eyes lit up. The way that he looked at Yufu changed once more. Sun Qi stood up and dusted off his butt. Let's go. Off to the palace. After everyone left, Gui pouted and said, "Why is the deity of medicine so capricious? Wasn't everything fine when he was eating the chicken legs during dinner yesterday? Why is it that he wanted to humiliate father in front of everyone?" Gu Huaijiang, however, did not look humiliated in the slightest. Deity of medicine provided our Marquis Gu's manor with such a great help. Even if he goes overboard with any of his actions, why should it bother us? Gui thought about it a little. All right, he can be considered as having saved father's life. I guess kneeling is fine to repay a life-saving benefactor. Idiot, that wasn't the help that father was talking about. Gu Jiugu smacked him on the head with a folding fan. Father was talking about treating his majesty's poison. If Marquis Gu's manor made an appearance in this matter, it would be hard for us to avoid being dragged into the struggle for the throne. Now, with the deity of medicine making an appearance, as someone divorced from worldly affairs, he won't be dragged into the strife. He can treat him however he wishes. His Majesty can stay alive, and Marquis Gu's manor can remain distanced. Is this not beneficial to both sides? The younger ones listened to this in a daze, and Gu Yi seemed to have suddenly obtained enlightenment. So this is why eldest brother was saying that only the deity of medicine could treat him. Why had they not thought of this? Gu Jiugu looked at him, then secretly shook his head. Gu Huaijiang smiled, then turned around and returned to the main hall. Gui watched him depart and doubtfully said, "It's fine if father isn't angry, but why do I feel that he isn't happy? Second brother, what are you shaking your head for?" Gu Yi, this idiot, still did not understand even to this moment. Gu Jiugu looked at Gu Xiang, Gu Hanamo, and the others. Have you guys noticed? Gu Hanamo nodded. While Gu Wenqing looked a little embarrassed, I was absolutely terrified when I heard it, but I felt that the deity of medicine was not that sort of person. Thinking about it now, I finally understand. Gui was completely lost. Huh. What do you understand? What was this group of people saying? What were they hiding from him? He gave Gu Xiang a push. Did you understand? Gu Xiang said, think about it. If the deity of medicine disliked Father and wanted to humiliate him, why would he bother help by going into the palace to treat His Majesty? I heard Steward Qi say that Father has already finished writing the report and was about to go into the palace to hand it to His Majesty while having Yu Fu treat him. Gui was shocked. How close. It's fortunate that Father didn't go. Otherwise, would it not offend the one who carried out the poisoning? Based on what you said, why would the deity of medicine want Father to kneel before going? You idiot. In the end, he didn't have Father kneel all the way. Gu Xiang looked as if he was explaining something to a cow. He really did not want to admit that he and Gui were twins. How could he be the younger twin brother of such an idiot? Everyone shook their heads while smiling before leaving. Only Gui continued to stand next to the gate, as he wondered what exactly the reason was. After a long time, he rejoiced and said, I've figured it out. The deity of medicine wanted to give Father a chance to buy some goodwill. Like this, when His Majesty wakes up, he will hear that Father was willing to kneel just to save his life. This will definitely increase his trust in Father. He won't have any more suspicions, right? Turning his head, he found that there was nobody there. Everyone had left long ago. Gu Yi secretly voiced his praise. So this is what eldest brother meant by the deity of medicine having a hard mouth but a soft heart. That is to say, he will marry Yu Fu to eldest brother? Sixth young sir, what are you saying? A steward saw him standing there and muttering to himself. Coming closer, he wanted to hear what was being said. Gui glanced out through the gate. The green leaves from a row of tall trees outside Marquis Gu's manor's walls gave off a faint fragrance. This sort of smell was a little like the smell of Yu Fu's medicine kit. It smelled earthy and unique. He suddenly smiled and said, I was just saying that spring has arrived, and I noticed the smell of spring. When Sun Qi's group arrived at the emperor's palace, there were quite a few court officials and imperial concubines gathered around. Hearing the news, imperial consort Xian rushed out of the hall and saw Sun Qi in the group, which caused her to immediately start swaying. He had long eyebrows that drooped past the shoulders, a beard that was pure white, a radiant energy, and an aura of divinity. Anyone who saw him would not doubt the accuracy of his title, deity of medicine. Aside from the sage doctor of this era, who else could live to such an age and be in such high spirits? Your Highness, take care of yourself. You must be exhausted from taking care of His Majesty. Mu Jin was quick to support her, and that was the only reason that she did not lose control. She glanced at the eldest prince, and the latter gave her a look. Imperial consort Xian personally stepped forward to invite Sun Qi, deity of medicine. His Majesty is in the palace. Please come in. The imperial guard stationed outside the palace saw the sword at Tian Shu's hip and wanted to stop him. Eunuch Gao's expression changed, but it was already too late to stop them. The cold-faced disciple in white glared at the people blocking them. The things from Immortal's Valley are not to be touched by outsiders. Honored guest, swords are not permitted to be brought next to His Majesty. These are the rules of our Eastern Ling's imperial palace. Please. Before he could finish speaking, Sun Qi got annoyed and said, So annoying. You are the ones who invited me to treat the emperor's illness. If you dare to keep mouthing off, I won't treat him. Upon hearing these arrogant words, some of the officials said in fright, How could you dare? Sun Qi waved his sleeve, and a strong gust pushed the door open. He then disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. Where is he? Yu Fu said, Eunuch Gao, Master has a strange temperament. If he says that he won't treat him, he really might decide to not treat him. After saying this, she gave Eunuch Gao a profound look and led Tian Shu into the hall. Eunuch Gao shuddered, but immediately recovered and headed into the hall. Imperial consort Xian lifted the hem of her dress, wanting to go into the palace, but with another gust of wind, the door was heavily closed. With a bang, All of the officials and imperial concubines were held outside. While everyone was hesitating, they could only turn their eyes on Gu Shubai. This easily annoyed deity of medicine was living in Marquis Gu's manor. Gu Shubai said, "The deity of medicine has a strange temperament. He is also the same in Marquis Gu's manor, and it's very difficult for me. But since he said that he will save His Majesty, he should save him, right? There's no need to pay any mind to something like that sword." Everyone also saw the deity of medicine's divine power. If he wants to kill someone, there's absolutely no need for a sword. After saying this, he let out a long sigh. Even I was kicked down from the top of a tree by him. His movements were too fast. They were so fast that I couldn't even react. Frightening. Did he want to kill Gu Shubai or something? Right? They had heard that Marquis Gu's manor had privately announced an engagement for Gu Shubai and Yu Fu, and this deity of medicine was very unhappy. Even now, he has yet to agree. The second prince looked around at the officials. That's right. The deity of medicine does indeed have a strange temperament. Today, in Marquis Gu's manor, he had Marquis Gu kneel to him before he was willing to come into the palace to treat Father Emperor. What did he say? He had Gu Huizhang kneel. This deity of medicine was too much. He was truly too much. He actually dared to humiliate the most venerated Marquis General of Eastern Ling. Was being able to treat illness so amazing? It was indeed amazing. Even if they were displeased by Sun Qi's offensive deeds, everyone had to obediently wait outside the palace. When it came to the deity of medicine's rumored ability possibly being fake, the Empress Dowager living to the age of 80 before passing away was evidence against this. To have that ability, it was no wonder he was so hot-tempered. Imperial Consort Xian listened to the conversation between the officials, as they talked about how exceptional Sun Qi's abilities were and how much the Empress Dowager benefited. The more she heard, the paler she became. With such a skilled doctor, would the poison that the eldest prince had used be noticed? If he noticed it, would the investigation lead to herself and the eldest prince? Amidst the crowd, the leader of the civil officials, In Shuo, quietly stood there and watched Imperial Consort Xian's expressions. The reactions from the mother and son duo were really quite entertaining. In the hall, Emperor Ning lay on his bed with only a sliver of consciousness remaining. In his stupor, he saw a divine person in white clothes drift toward him. He was surrounded by a divine aura that invoked feelings of reverence from all who saw him. He could barely raise his hand and performed a fitting gesture. Amitabha Buddha, Sir Immortal must have come from afar. Please forgive us for not going out to greet you. He mistook Sun Qi for a Taoist but performed a Buddhist greeting. Yu Fu saw this and immediately knew that things were not good. The person behind the poisoning must have felt that things were progressing too slowly. He should not be poisoned to such a degree. Eunuch Gao stood to the side and reminded, "Your Majesty, this is the great deity of medicine. He came to examine you." Sun Qi waved his hand, and a silver needle flew out from his sleeve, landing on Emperor Ning's brow. Eunuch Gao covered his mouth in fear. However, Emperor Ning slowly began to regain his consciousness. The look in his eyes slowly began clearing up. So it was the deity of medicine. We finally managed to have our wish come true. Back then, our mother empress was saved by you. Decades have passed. Yet you do not seem to have changed at all. Emperor Ning still remembered Sun Qi, but Sun Qi no longer remembered him. He ran his fingers through his beard and sat on the chair brought out by Eunuch Gao. Cut the pointless talk and extend your arm. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.